everyone, and welcome to the Amherst County Board of Supervisors meeting. This is the call to order. Let the record reflect it is September 20th, 2022, and the time is 7 p.m. Our first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Board, are there any additions or deletions or changes that need to be made? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, I would like to ask Mr. Wade to lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, let's pray. Dear Lord, we come to you with a thankful heart for the day you blessed us with, Lord, and hopefully many more days ahead of us. We ask for your watchful hand over our law enforcement and emergency services as they're out helping us every single day. We also ask for your hand over the military. We ask for your guidance in this meeting, and we ask that you just let us do your will. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Wade, for those nice words. All right, next we have citizen comments. We've got a plethora of public hearings tonight, but this is for anything other than what's under the public hearing. We only have one signature on here, and that is Miss Sunny Monk. If you could come up and just state your name and address or your district for the record.
Thank you, sir. My name is Sunny Monk. I live at 2288 Lexington Turnpike, and I'm here on behalf of Second Stage. I know I'm in Claudia's district. I'm not sure what number it is. I just wanted to take a few minutes, thank you, to, it's not an emergency, but it's an urgency. We have today and tomorrow to tell a national foundation that Amherst would love to have 3 concerts in our town, in our county, in our region. Second Stage applied in July for this award. We passed the first 3 hurdles. We are now in the public comment phase, and this mission of this family foundation is so similar to Amherst. They want to build small and middle-sized towns by bringing people together, and their focus is music. They have asked us what kind of genres we have, and think about all of our possibilities. They have asked us what our location would be. They have asked about our town. We are now at number 29. We need to get to number 20. And your vote and the vote of every living soul that you know is important. I've put a card on the supervisor's dais here, and what I'm asking you to do is just point your phone at one text or online, and your vote will go through automatically. This is the time when they want to know, okay, Second Stage wants to do this, but does the town, the county, the region want it? So just a couple minutes to say thank you if you've already voted, ladies and gentlemen. Please do if you haven't. It will change the horizon in Amherst. It's 30 free concerts over 3 years. They need to be outdoor, they need to be lawn seating, they need to be available for everybody. And that's what we want to do. Any questions?
No questions, Mrs. Monk, but if you've got extra cards, you're more than welcome to leave them out there on the table.
Yes.
So as people exit the building, they can...
There's one of these like subtle little things out there.
Okay.
And if I gave a lot of people cards, but a few people came in, just point your phone. I didn't know how to do this until I had... You point your phone at this and things happen. It's just the strangest thing. So thank you so much for all your support. We had a community day last Saturday and had about 400 people. It was really wonderful. Anytime you put little girls in tutus on stage, it's fabulous. Everybody comes. And then the high school improv group came and entertained us for about an hour. It was really fun. So we're coming open. We're coming back. Thank you for everything you do for us.
Thank you, Ms. Monk. Appreciate it. Thanks for everything you do for Second Stage as well. All right, I'll reiterate again, we're going to have a public hearing regarding the special exception request and the zoning request regarding Terry Morcom, the property down there. But if anyone else would like to speak that has nothing to do with that, they're more than welcome to come forward and speak at this time. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the citizen comments, and we're going to move on to our public hearing. The first one is Special Exception 2022-350, James Kruger. Mr. Jeremy Bryant.
Hey, thank you. This is a request by James and Carolyn Kruger for a special exception request in the R1 Limited Residential District. The purpose of this request is to allow for a short-term tourist rental of a dwelling. This property is located at 343 Elon Road. The applicant wishes to use their basement as a unit for a short-term tourist rental. The Planning Commission recommended approval with the conditions that are on the summary page of your staff report. Are there any questions that you have for staff?
Any questions, board? Thank you, Mr. Bryant. All right. We will go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this special exception request, please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, is anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone wishing to speak against? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Board, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the request with conditions recommended by the Planning Commission.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a special exception 2022-366, Joshua Huffines. Mr. Bryant.
Yes, sir. This request is by Joshua Huffines, also a special exception request in the R1 Limited District. The purpose of this is also for a short-term tourist rental of a dwelling. This property is located at 129 Apple Way. The Planning Commission also recommended approval with the conditions that were on your summary page. Any questions for staff?
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Bryant. All right, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on special exception request 2022-366. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this special exception request? Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion from the board, unless there's any further discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the request with the conditions recommended by the Planning Commission.
There's a motion on the floor by Mrs. Tucker. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we get down to the brass tacks, Mr. Bryant. We have several different hearings we have to go through, a total of 4 on the Morcom property. I'll go ahead and let you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I have a lot to cover. What I intend to do first is to go over, we have 4 different public hearings for Mr. Morcom. I'd like to go over a broad overview with you of all of them, the reason we have so many hearings, try to break that down for you before we get into each specific one. Okay? So on your screen is a development, and this development is a multitude of uses. This is at Route 163 and 210. Mr. Morcom is proposing these apartment buildings. He's also, as part of that, it's going to be a rezoning request for the apartment buildings. All of this front property now is zoned commercial, and I'd like to flip over to this map first, and I'll come back to the master plan map. So what you see here is the existing zoning here. There's 3 main parcels. There's this front parcel, used to be owned by Sam Cunningham along Route 163. This is zoned commercial, and this rear parcel is already zoned R3 multifamily, which is generally our densest single-use residential district. This little yellow parcel is your 3rd hearing. We'll go over that. That's R1. That is also part of a rezoning request. And so what's being proposed in terms of zoning is to leave a portion of this area here commercial, as it's already zoned, rezoning the remainder of it, this remaining portion, to R3. So they want to get to the same zoning that's in the rear. So this would remain R3. The request is this to change to R3, and then this little parcel, this yellow parcel, which is our R1, the limited residential district, would be also changed to the R3 multifamily district. So in terms of zoning, we're going from this commercial zoning to high density. Before I leave this map, do you have any questions? Then I'm going to flip back over to the master plan. Okay, and we can come back to this. I have both of these pulled up. Okay, so back to the master plan. There are 4 requests. The first request is going to be for this rezoning, and so that's that rezoning I was showing you earlier, where this portion stays commercial. The remaining portion here would be R3 residential, our R3 multifamily residential district. That's the first request, okay? The second request before you tonight is these apartments require a density bonus request from you. We added that amendment when we were working on Phelps Road. So we added and gave you the ability to do a density bonus, and we used that density bonus for Phelps Road. So it's only been used once in the county. This would be the second request for this density bonus. The by right amount of units is 184 units. They're asking for a density bonus from 184 to 276. Okay, so that'll be your second request, is the density bonus. So first is rezoning, second is density bonus. Your third request before you tonight is that little parcel I showed you earlier. It's 0.3 acres from the R1 limited district to the R3 multifamily. So that's your third request before you tonight. And then your fourth request has to do with these facilities in the back. And the facilities in the back include an assisted living facility and let me make sure I'm reading it right, and a memory care facility. Okay, these are 2-story buildings, and both of these are wrapped up into one special exception request, okay? So that's your fourth request, is to approve these 2 buildings at the rear, okay? And we'll go into detail on each one of them, but that's a broad overview of why there's 4 requests. So there's 2 different rezoning requests, and remember, with rezonings, we'll talk about proffers. With special exceptions, we'll talk about conditions, okay? And we can impose those conditions for special exceptions, and with proffers, they're voluntary from the applicant. And we'll work with them to come up with uses and concerns that we have as the county. Any questions before I dive into the first request? Good so far, okay. Good, I haven't lost you yet. Okay, so the first request, this is a request by Terry Morcom for a conditional zoning of 15.63 acres from the B2 general commercial to the R3 multifamily district. The purpose of this conditional zoning is to allow high-density residential housing that will contain apartments, a community building, a pool, and open space. And again, we're talking about this area here, okay? That's what I'm referring to. This request does include an amendment to the future land use map of the county's comprehensive plan from commercial to medium density residential and medium residential to high density in the area identified on the proposed rezoning map. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the request and accepted the applicant's proffers. I won't read each of those proffers to you. They are on your summary sheet. There's 7 different proffers. And again, the Planning Commission recommended approval with those voluntary proffers. I want to talk a little bit about Vdot. Vdot is going to require a traffic impact analysis. That has not been done yet, okay? I have a letter dated September the 9th that's in your packet, and I want to point out in the first paragraph, last sentence, Vdot said, in principle, Vdot does not oppose the rezoning of the parcel for this purpose as presented in the concept plan. We've worked with them and met with them multiple times. Vdot did provide some assurances that they feel like this is an approvable plan. It will require likely some reconfiguration of the stoplight. That stoplight will have to be paid for by the developer, but that has to be worked out how that would be done. I also want to share with you some numbers. In your packet on page 2 of that Vdot letter, we asked Vdot to put traffic impact numbers together. We learned based on the on the units for the multifamily, for the senior adult housing, the assisted living, the strip plaza, that commercial area in the front is 17,500 square feet of commercial area. VDOT anticipates that the daily traffic in and out is 4,174. Okay, so 2,087 in, 2,087 out. They anticipate about 4,100 trips total for this development at full build-out, when it reaches full build-out. Also looked at and researched the number of cars per day now on Route 163. The average weekday traffic on Route 163 is 8,100 vehicles, okay? So we're looking at about a 50% increase at full build-out. That does not take into the Patel development, that does not take into CVTC, what could become of that. But 2019 data from VDOT, which is the latest data that was available, the average weekday traffic was 8,100. Actually, the average daily traffic is 7,600. It goes down because the cars on the weekend pulls that number down. But the average weekday traffic is 8,100, and the average daily, when you combine the two, is 7,600. So you're looking at near a 50% increase at full build-out. Again, VDOT does feel like they can deal with this development, but will require traffic impact analysis, and we don't have the benefit of that tonight. So I wanted to be clear about that. The site does have water, and I think you're well informed as to the status of the sewer line, which you'll be discussing later tonight, so I won't go into any great detail about that. So I'm done for this first request. Is there any questions that you have for staff?
Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Bryant, so the apartments fronting 163, how will they relate to the street frontage? Or is it just going to be the backs of the building?
Yes, sir. We are requiring as part, well, we're asking as part of the proffer, and the developer agreed there will be sidewalks along Route 163. We will also have landscaping along Route 163. We did not get into the configuration of how the buildings are turned.
I'm more interested in, is it going to be similar materials on all four sides, or how the building's going to be constructed?
So don't know about any materials on this. Wasn't able to get any more information from the developer on that.
Yeah, perhaps Mr. Morcom might be able to speak to that later on. Okay, great.
And his architect is here.
All right. Mr. Morcom, if you could come up as well as your architect, I guess we should just get these questions answered up front so we can discuss them as a board, if you don't mind. Thank you, Mr. Morcom. Welcome.
Thank you. And this is Daniel Levy. He's with DK architectural firm. Anyway, we have some conceptual drawings of what we think, what we're trying to achieve as far as the apartments. That would be these here. You want to look closer, I can bring them up certainly, and Daniel can speak to it as well. But as far as the apartments, we're proposing, to have a density of 276 apartments, and they're market rate apartments. We're trying to produce a product that, will be beneficial to the county, and we feel like it'll also be an asset to the county. Y'all have, I know y'all have received in your packets some impact studies, economic impact studies, and Jamie Gillespie back there, she is here to answer any questions associated with that. So if you've got questions, I'll let Daniel speak to the architectural nature of this.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to be here. In regard to the question as far as what will these buildings look like from the street frontage, what we were attempting to do is to shield the parking lot and the cars with the building structures themselves, and they essentially have two front facades. So the facades that you're seeing here, it looks the same on the back and the front. So it's not like there's a true back of the building, so there's not really an ugly side. And so what we were trying to do is shield the cars and, so you don't just look out and see a lot of parking, but you have some green space and then you see the buildings. And it provides a nice landscape for that.
Will you be able to access the sidewalk from the buildings onto 163?
My current understanding is that there is a fence between, like a three-rail fence between the sidewalk and green area, but I could be mistaken about that. But there would be connectivity through the site. Part of the idea with the multifamily component in conjunction with what we're attempting to do with the senior living is to bring people together. And so through the green spaces and through sidewalks and the activities, having folks that aren't just in a senior living island by themselves, but to really have interaction with the multifamily community is important. And so we want people to get out of their rooms and enjoy life in the outdoors. And so part of that is experienced with the multifamily component of this. So the idea is that there is some overlap and interaction there between the different facets of the project.
Okay. Perhaps you can work with Mr. Bryan at the final site plan process. I mean, it'd be kind of nice to be able to access that sidewalk going up 163. Maybe there's a break in the fence or
Understood.
something.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. If we have any more, we'll call on it. All right, we're getting ready to open up the public hearing. I know there are a lot of people here tonight. I would just ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes, direct them to the board. Be courteous and respectful to each and every one. And with that, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing for request 2022-385. Also, there's 4 different hearings. If you would like, you're more than welcome to all come up on the first hearing, speak your piece, and then we can go through the other ones, but it's up to you. It's your pleasure. So we'll go ahead and open it up, and our first speaker will be Calvin Kennan, District 3.
Good afternoon, good evening. Calvin Kennan, District 3. I do serve on the Economic Development Authority Board, and this is obviously a win for economic development. And there's so many things we could talk about with that. It's more of an anchor type project. I mean, it's got so many facets to it. There will be many retail and services needed along with something like this. But the thing that really strikes me is being able to have a place for our seniors. Our seniors have had to go to other areas, and there are many fine facilities in the region, but they're Amherst County people that have to go somewhere else. And I think they'd like to be able to stay home. You've got the apartment part of it where we do need affordable housing. It's just a wonderful project with so many green spaces, the pool, everything. I really hope you guys can support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I don't even know what, it's Mike, it looks like OGL. I don't know. It's just,
Can't spell one school now. My name's Mike Ogden. I live at 144 Scotts Mill Road, Madison Heights, Virginia, in the Merrimore subdivision. I've lived there for 50 years. There's about 60 homes located in the Merrimore subdivision. And currently, when you try to come out of there, it's very difficult now with 8,000 cars passing up and down the hill, particularly since they put in the Route 210 connector. We get a lot more traffic than we used to. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you can forget getting out of there and trying to go north with all the traffic coming out of town. The thing that concerns most of us in the community, and we had a good outpouring when we had the Planning Commission meeting and a good conversation, is how this traffic is going to input us trying to get out of Merrimore back onto 163. Currently, there are 8,000 cars coming up and down that road, and we can barely get out. Now we're talking about adding 50% more cars just up the street from us by about 200 feet where the stoplight is. This proposed subdivision by Mr. Markham only has one entrance and one exit coming in and out. So when that traffic light turns and all those cars get to jump on us to make that right-hand turn to go into town, it's going to be impossible for us to make a left-hand turn to go north. Tough enough to make a right-hand turn to go into town. If there was some way where we could have a second entrance and second exit into this that would help alleviate some of the traffic so that we'll have at least a shot of getting out of there, or Vdot could do a study to give us a second stoplight or something down at our entrance and exit into the subdivision would be great. That's our biggest concern, is the additional traffic and how we, who've lived there all our life, could be able to get in and out of our subdivision. Any questions for me?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Next, we have Teresa Ogden. You could just state your district or your address.
I don't know my district.
Or
I'm
your
Teresa
address is fine.
Ogden. Teresa Ogden, 144 Scotts Mill Road, Madison Heights, Virginia. That's my husband. Ditto. But our concern is traffic. It's so hard to get out of our subdivision now with the amount of traffic that's there. You have to depend on a kind person coming north to let you out. And there are some of those, thank goodness. But it's just difficult. And with all this additional, it's going to be harder. What I ask of the board is when Vdot makes their proposal to you, please make sure that we have a stoplight at our entrance to our subdivision, or we're not going to get out. We're not going to be able to get out. You know, that's my concern. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Andrew Proctor. And I think you also have a statement from Victoria Hanson as well.
Yes, good evening. Yeah, Andrew Proctor, 401 Historic Riverview Way in Madison Heights. I'm an EDA member as well, and I'm speaking to you on behalf of myself and the EDA. I kind of want to offer a perspective based on numbers from our most recent census data. I think putting some numbers to it is interesting. And if you think about how would this, based on that, how does the Morecambe development impact Amherst County? And based on the number of housing units, that's about 1,000 new residents, which is really a 3% increase in our county population, which is pretty substantial, seeing as over the last decade we have had a substantial decline in our population. That's also a 4.5% increase in available housing to the county. And as I think if you look at the way everything is laid out, that's about 60% of those units are senior housing. And that's something that has been called for by our residents on many surveys over the last few years. The nice thing about it being senior housing too, and I can speak to this from having 2 little kids in the school system, is that's probably a pretty minimal impact to the number of additional students that our teachers would have to address. I think, we couldn't see it out here, but I'm cheating and I can see it from here. From some of the view of the buildings, I think what we're going to find is that they are upscale, and that higher density special exemption is going to really help ensure that those rates remain market rate, which I think is what we want for our constituents. And finally, I think a really interesting piece here is if you look at the per capita spending based on census data at 1,000 new folks, that's $10 million in additional retail spending in Amherst County businesses. That's 3.3% more than in 2020, so it doesn't count inflation. That's incredible for all those local stores that we've got here. There absolutely is more traffic, and I think the good thing is, though, this is in a designated growth and opportunity area, and so it's in the right spot. And then the other part of it is developments like this take some time. This is not going to go from this to full build-out in a week. This is probably a 5-year or so build-out, which gives the county plenty of time to work with Vdot to address the valid concerns. At 60% of these residents being seniors, hopefully a lot of that traffic will not coincide with normal high spots during commuter hours. So that might be in the short term an upside. One other thing I wanted to call out here is if you look at the Madison Heights Master Plan Survey that was recently completed this summer, the citizens called out two key areas. One, what do we want to preserve, and what do we want to change? And what we wanted to preserve were natural features, community character, existing businesses, and Old Town Madison Heights. And what we wanted to change was we wanted to revitalize the area, we wanted to increase economic development, more restaurants, shopping, et cetera, and community facilities. And I think that this development is going to help. I think it really probably helps with both of those. In summary, because I know I'm getting close to my 3 minutes, I think that the Morcom family has a long history of creating affordable and nice housing in Amherst County. They strive to add to our community, not detract from it. And as a county, we've watched Lynchburg revitalize over the last decade, and we've frankly struggled a little bit to capitalize on their flourishing Lynchburg downtown. We consistently hear our residents clamor for better restaurants, shopping, lower taxes, affordable senior housing, but we are cautious about development. I believe that this proposed development has been designed to mitigate any significant concerns around development. It's geographically positioned to help our county leverage the growth in downtown Lynchburg to Amherst County's advantage. And I believe it will lure more residents to our county and support the business development activities of the EDA. This will in turn give our residents what they've said they wanted, which is more restaurants, shopping, and support our existing businesses. For those reasons, myself and the EDA support this development. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And would you like me to read Ms. Hanson's statement?
Yes, certainly you can read Ms. Hanson's statement. She is the Director of the Economic Development Authority.
Yeah, and she apologizes. She had a personal emergency, so I will do my best to read hers. So she says, Dear Board of Supervisors, the EDA supports the Morcom Conditional Rezoning and Special Exception Project that will provide much-needed senior housing choices for Amherst residents. There are very few choices for Amherst County elderly residents who want to age in place in their home community. Many residents of Amherst County have made the tough choice of placing their beloved parents in assisted living facilities outside of Amherst County, forcing them to drive a distance to visit them, when they would prefer to have them in a facility in the county. The EDA believes the Morcom project will meet a real need for senior housing and facilities while also increasing economic activity. The new families in the market rate apartments and the independent seniors will visit nearby restaurants, retail, and service businesses. Families visiting their parents and grandparents mean more visitors spending at Amherst County, businesses as they stop for gas, shop for groceries, or building supplies and eat at restaurants. Retail and businesses in the commercial development in the project area will bring sales tax revenue to Amherst County and jobs. The Lynchburg Regional Business Alliance Impact Study estimates an increase in annual tax revenue based on additional residents alone is $597,911 annually. The Morcom project is located within the designated growth area and meets two of the Board of Supervisors' goals: promote business growth and residential growth in designated areas. Vdot will address the traffic needs of the new project through the traffic study. Sincerely, Victoria Hanson.
Thank you. All right, next, anyone wishing to speak regarding the special exception, please come forward. Is there anyone wishing to speak? You can go. Just please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, I'm Sabrina Kennan, 1805 Winesap Road, District 3. I run the Amherst County Chamber of Commerce, and I volunteer every month that they have a senior social. I don't know if anyone's been at the senior social, but it's a pretty good event. And today we had 149 to participate. A couple of months ago, some of the seniors were complaining because they realized a few didn't live in Amherst, but were still attending. And after having the conversation, the issue was they were born here, raised their families here, retired here, but when they aged out of independent living, they couldn't stay here. They called this home, they came back. They do it every month it's held. So I'd like that to be taken into consideration. Obviously, Vdot will do what they do, which is address the traffic concerns. But I think as a community, we have the opportunity with the Morcom project to serve all of our demographics. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward. If you would, just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Heather Jamerson. I live at 114 Woman Drive, and I live in the Mary Moore development, and I have a senior, excuse me, allergies. She goes to Amherst High School, and she, of course, has to take a left-hand turn to go to school every day. And I just want to reiterate that we do need to address something more than just one way in and one way out in this development. The concerns are the traffic and the buildup of it. I mean, there's going to be deliveries, guests, visitors, employees, and I'm not going to stop development, nor do I want to. I think it's a lovely idea that we have a senior development center. But however, the concerns of the traffic and the employees and the visitors and everything that it's going to intake is going to be more for my community. And I want my daughter to still be here and go to college and stay at home and, you know, these concerns. Also, the Morecambs do have some property down the road from where I live, and it's not a desirable look. So I have concerns about how is this really going to get off? And it's just mainly it's the traffic. And if we could get another road in and out to this place, because it just won't work. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone else wishing to speak? If not, I'll go ahead and close.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I'll go ahead if nobody else is gonna, I've got a letter.
Okay.
I'd like to read on behalf of Chuck and Ann Norwood. Make sure y'all can hear me. It is very concerning the development that may be built in our neighborhood. As residents, the charm of our neighborhood has been the peace and quiet we have enjoyed for years. With the addition of a possible 264 apartments, 90 patio homes, 152 individual independent homes, and 150 memory care nursing home units, that's 576 additional residents on 26 acres of land. That does not include the visitors and the employees that will also be traveling in and out of the development. These numbers are equivalent to a small town. We need to look at the traffic from the downtown area, the expressway, Madison Heights, the elementary school, which should also be taken into consideration. Mr. Morecambe implied it would be a 50-plus retirement community and that only 19-year-olds will be able to live there for so many months. How and who will enforce such a policy? If this development goes forward, hopefully Mr. Morecambe will put in a permanent vinyl fence or powder-coated fence that will withstand the weather and last for many years. We know he mentioned a fence would deteriorate. Putting in a natural barrier is not a permanent solution to keep our community safe and prevent intruders from encroaching on our property. Vdot is going to do a traffic flow evaluation. As residents, we already know how the congestion will be overwhelming to our community. We're asking you to put yourselves in our shoes as to how you would feel if this development was going to be built in your neighborhood. Please consider voting against this.
Thank you. All right. On that, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I know that Mr. Rogers had spoken to me just a few minutes ago regarding some of the discussions he has had with Vdot, and if you would like to go ahead and just make aware of your discussions, preliminary discussions with Vdot.
Yes, sir. County staff meets with Vdot on a monthly basis, just to go through all of our issues. And at our last meeting, we raised this development and expressed our concerns with the traffic, our concerns of how CVTC and then up the road, the Madison Heights Town Center might affect all of this. And they were very responsive. They have already compiled a team. We'll meet next week to begin planning for the expansion of 163. It's currently 3 lanes up from the bridge, the John Lynch Bridge, to where it crosses Business 29. And so we talked about a ramp onto 29 from that point and adding another lane so that, you know, the 4 lanes coming across the bridge will continue on up until it can connect into the expressway. Now, I mean, this is long-term. They said it's very expensive, but in the Vdot system of making road improvements, it takes several years. You have to compete. It's called Smart Scale, so they have a scoring system. But you have to begin the design work very early on. And to be honest, we expressed that the Vdot has, we've been done very well in Smart Scale. And the majority of all of our projects have been approved, funded, and of course it takes them several years to get accomplished. And it would be the same for this, but we need to begin that now to be ready for when the future does arrive. So I just wanted the board to be aware that we have got VDOT's attention. They are taking this seriously. And in addition to the study for just this development, we are trying to deal with all the development that's happening in Madison Heights and turn 163 into another gateway that makes it easier for everyone to come back and forth across the river. And this will give us access to 2 bridges and hopefully 2 sets of 4-lane access. I just wanted the board to be aware of that staff is planning for that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I ask Mr. Bryant a question?
Mr. Bryant?
Mr. Bryant? Mr. and Mrs. Ogden and Mrs. Jameson, obviously, a lot of the citizens have been in that Marymore development for many years, and I'm somewhat familiar with the impact study in regards to VDOT. And that impact study would bring their development as part of looking at this entire totality, not just the Markham development, but also the folks that have lived there for many years, to try to make a traffic flow that's beneficial to them, as well as this development here. Am I correct in saying that?
That's a great question. I believe they would, but I'm not 100% sure.
Because that is, my understanding, the impact is to look at the impact of this, and as far as the entire community that would be impacted by the additional traffic in that 163 corridor.
Sure. Yeah, we could definitely make that request as part of
I
VDOT.
just want to make sure that
Yes, sir.
these folks' concerns are addressed, and they're currently having problems with that, and, we definitely need this development, but we also need to take care of those that have been there for some time.
So, how do we do that? Do we need to make a formal request that they include Mormon Drive on their impact study? Because I think it's imperative we do take care of those individuals and people that live on that road, that have been here, they've been taxpayers for however many years, and they're residents. They're just as important as everybody else, including the development, so.
Well,
No, please.
Well, I have one idea, Mr. Lockaby, I'd ask you to fact check this. We haven't gotten to the next density bonus, but when we talk about conditions, that could be a condition that you could add as part of allowing a density bonus, which would be granting it with a conditional approval, that would have to be part of it.
That would have to be part of the transportation study, you mean?
Correct.
Yes.
All right.
Well,
Mr. Martin?
sure. So what I heard from the citizens is, I won't say all of them, but the majority of them, their concerns were the traffic and the ability to make left-hand turns out of Marymore, right? That's what I heard. The development will be very beneficial to the county. There's no arguing that, but I do not see another traffic light going at Marymore just because of the spacing requirements. To me, there's only one solution, and that's extending Ottaway Drive over into the development, which would give them access to the traffic light, which unfortunately Mr. Morcom does not own. And I don't think we can require that, so that puts us in quite a bit of a quandary. Where is Mr. Moore? Can you come up, please?
Okay.
So I'm not sure it's your responsibility to solve the left-hand turn issue out of Marymore, but you'll definitely be exacerbating it with this development, right? I think that's fair to
I would
say.
agree.
Have you looked at assembling any other properties besides what you have now?
Have we talked about purchasing any other properties? Not as of right now. I mean, if something were available near it, it's a possibility that we may look into it.
Okay. So I guess where I'm at right now is I have an issue with the problem to Marymore, because I'm not sure if, if VDOT comes back and says, yep, Marymore is going to degrade to a level of service D or F or whatever it is, I'm not sure you're going to be able to improve it anyway, unless you can get access over to the light. So,
Correct.
okay. Thank you.
The one thing that I would like to note is that the apartments have have a secondary exit that goes out in front of Miller. They've been saying one way in, one way out. That's not exactly the truth, because you've got to exit out on the Miller Lane exit as well. And so that would bring those apartments out that direction. The other thing to note is that at the stoplight, you would be bringing predominantly senior living facilities, which don't travel to work quite at the rate that the rest of the public would. Okay?
Any more questions? Thank you. All right, Board, we've closed the public hearing. Are there any more discussions? You know, I know that this is a good spot for a development like this. You know, that property is set idle for a long time right there across from Webbsport, and goes that open field. It's been underutilized. You are in the vicinity, you're a stone's throw from Lynchburg. You know, there's been a lot of talk, as Mr. Kennan had said, and some of the other ones with the EDA, that, you know, we don't have a lot of shopping here, we don't have a lot of grocery stores, we don't have these things that other communities may have, and a development like this could spur some of those things. That it will be a substantial impact on the sales tax alone. I mean, there's a multitude of things that this is going to be good for the county, the senior living facility. Although Mormon Road, that is going to be a problem for the residents of Mormon Road and Scotts Mill. Hopefully through the VDOT study, maybe something will come out of that that's beneficial to them, but I don't see how we can pass up this rezoning with the economic impact that it will have on the county. And sitting on this board for the past, I guess it's been 10 years, I've heard a lot about not having enough in Amherst County, nowhere to live, places to rent. You know, we're falling behind, that we're losing population. So this might be the catalyst that helps with those issues that I've heard from so many people.
I had a question about that the stoplight that's been mentioned, not the new one, but the current one. Does that stoplight have a leading green? Does it have a stoplight where it's a green arrow and everybody can make that left-hand turn to come north? Or is it just a regular old stoplight?
I think it's just I believe it's just a regular, it's a regular stoplight. You're talking about the flashing?
No, I'm talking about that there's the left arrow, so everybody stops and only people can turn left.
I think, Ms. Tucker, this light is actually somewhat north of the intersection that goes into Marymore. This light does not govern their ingress and egress to that development. It sets up, it's more at the 210 connector right there. They are just below that, so they have to fight that stop traffic and all the other traffic, because that light does not give them a protected turn, because it sets up just a little bit north of where they're.
You answered my question. Thank you.
So,
Mr. Martin?
I have another question for Mr. Bryant, I'm sorry. So you may have mentioned this, but when do we expect the traffic study from VDOT?
Well, the Morcombs have not submitted the traffic impact analysis to VDOT yet. So what VDOT gave us was a reassurance letter. And it was a reassurance letter that they said they did not oppose the rezoning of the parcel for the purposes presented in the concept plan. They don't have enough data at this time to do a full traffic.
VDOT doesn't, or their consultant doesn't?
VDOT doesn't for the traffic impact analysis. But VDOT did assure us that this was a development that was approvable, and that having that light made all the difference in the world, because they could reconfigure the light to make it work.
Right. But, so to me, I want to support this project. Okay, I really do. I think it'll be beneficial to the county, yet to the detriment of the citizens that live on Mormon and Ottaway and Marymore, it gives me pause, great pause. And I think I've brought up this before, but why we continue to get petitions without all of the data, right? How can we really be expected to make good decisions when we don't have VDOT's true recommendations? Because it always puts us in a bad light after the fact. It's just kind of like what happened up in Ealing with the Dollar General, right? All of it. And I'm not sure how you make good recommendations as staff without all the data. I mean, nobody's arguing that this won't be good for the county. Nobody's arguing that the traffic light can't be reconfigured to adjust the traffic with this development. But what is going to happen up and downstream of it? So that's what really gives me pause. And then the thing that we'll be talking about later is the sewer, right? If the sewer doesn't get built, then what effect does that have on the development, right? Doesn't happen.
Right.
I'm guessing. So to me, there's just a lot of loose ends that need to be tidied up. So.
Well, and I'll tell you from a staff standpoint, we want that data too. We want every developer to provide a full traffic impact analysis. It simply comes down to cost and timing. Those are detrimental things, as I understand it, to the developments that we've seen recently, to the point that not knowing if they can move forward with the rezoning and special exception. I understand the chicken and egg, that we need to know the data, but the data costs a lot of money. And so it comes at a high expense working with Vdot. And so, Mr. Martin, I want that data too. And that's why I pressed for Vdot to give us what they could give us and put in writing a letter that gave some assurances in the multiple meetings we've had with them to get assurances that it is something they could approve, but I couldn't agree with you more. I want that too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
All right. Anyone else? If not, is anyone willing to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the zoning request as identified, but that the traffic impact analysis that VDOT's going to do does include Marymore.
All right, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify.
Well, I just want to point out, this is a rezoning with proffers right now, so we're at the first hearing. I would recommend that we do that at the second one and impose as a condition, because we're under voluntary proffers right now, and we don't have those written from the applicant.
So we'll strike the,
that last part.
okay, we'll strike that. All right, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have special exception 2022-386. Mr. Bryant?
Okay, so this is that second request. This is the density bonus for the apartment buildings that are in yellow. One thing that I did want to point out to you is where the apartment buildings border the residential areas, our landscaping ordinance will require screening. So I wanted to point that out. That's not something I didn't point out before, but that would be a concern for adjoining neighbors and adjoining structures and dwellings. So this request is also Terry Morcom with a special exception in the R3 multifamily residential district, which you just approved. The purpose of this is to go from 184 units density bonus to 276 units. There are 10 conditions that the Planning Commission recommended as part of this, such as exterior lighting, bus shelter, public utilities, trash disposal, landscaping, site plan requirements, utilities underground, open space as you see on the proposed site plan, roads, and then sidewalks. And Mr. Martin, this gets into some of the internal sidewalks that we were talking about earlier, and external sidewalks, and tying those together. And then, Mr. Wade, to your point earlier, this would be an appropriate time to add that additional condition requiring that the Marymore subdivision be included into the traffic impact analysis that would be required by VDOT.
Thank you.
Any questions for staff?
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for the special exception 2022-386. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Bob Hopkins, 2136 Cedar Gate Road. I travel River Road on a regular basis, and one of the things that I'm seeing is increased traffic, not just for the local traffic, but people coming from west of Elan to get to Lynchburg, and they use River Road to bypass Madison Heights. I would strongly recommend you expand Mr. Wade's suggestion to include the River Road intersection in that VDOT study, because also, I have no idea what the traffic counts are, but it makes common sense that the vast majority of the people that go to River Edge Park are coming down 163 and taking the River Road intersection. They're not going down Lynch's Ferry or going through Old Town. So if this traffic could have a vast impact on being able to get to River Edge Park or forcing traffic to go through Old Town. So just something to think about. You may want to include that intersection. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else wishing to speak regarding this special exception?
Mike Ogden, 144 Scotts Mill Road, Madison Heights. When I spoke about there was only one entrance and exit, and then Terry came up and said there was a second entrance and exit at Miller's Lane, I didn't realize that that was an exit and entrance and exit, and I'd just like a little clarification if that is true or not.
All right. I assume it would be an entrance and exit.
So our plan, it shows, if you look right here across from Miller Lane, it's all the roads that were marked in white are roads that we plan to make state-maintained roads. We don't have state-maintained roads going through the apartment complex, but we have an exit out right in front of Miller Lane that we thought was necessary in order to address public safety. If there were a fire to break out, gave us a loop road to allow fire trucks and ambulance or whatever were needing to get in there, gave them a loop in and out of there. I know that in past I've heard concerns that you bring a tanker truck in there and that tanker truck has to leave and go get refilled and they're bringing another one behind it. They need to access out without having to fight everybody else. So that was their planning when we put the entrance at across from Miller Lane. And that's a nice flat, that's an easy in and out right there as far as we saw. Didn't feel like that was going to, and we think that also will help the impact at the stoplight. We also, being a four-way stoplight at that intersection across from 210, we also think that that becoming a four-way stop, that's going to help to address some of Mary Moore's concerns.
So it will be an entrance and exit, right?
It will be an entrance and an exit. That's our plan, yes. And we have had that discussion with VDOT, and VDOT is completely on board with that idea that that be an entrance and exit into the apartment side of the development.
All right, thank you.
Anything?
Anything else? All right. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? If not, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Board, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the zoning request recommended by the Planning Commission with the inclusion, with the traffic study to include Marymore, River Road, and Miller Lane.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next, we have rezoning request 2022-387.
So just to refocus what we're talking about, this seems, so this yellow piece here is is the third request. So this is also a request by Terry Markham for a rezoning of 0.3 acres from the R1 limited residential to the R3 multifamily. The purpose of this is to become part of the senior living community. This request also requires an amendment to the future land use map of the Amherst County Comprehensive Plan from commercial and medium density to high density residential. Planning Commission recommended approval. There are no proffers. Part of this rezoning, this will get absorbed into the overall master development. Any questions for staff?
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Thanks. All right, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing regarding the rezoning request. Is there anyone wishing to speak?
Just on that piece of, that one little 0.3 acre parcel there, we've owned that parcel for, well, it's been in my family, let me put it that way. My parents actually owned it for a long time and had a partner in it, and now I'm an owner of it, or I'm the owner of it. But it wasn't until we got into the planning of this that we were made aware that this was a R1 zoned spot. There's nothing anywhere around that that's zoned R1 except for the one house right on the corner, and I'm not even sure that he's zoned R1. So we were just thinking to put it all under R3, and it should be. That, and to note also, that one spot, we're not jumping up and down at the idea of bringing Mary Moore through to that boulevard for the senior living, but that particular lot might be key to having those two things connect.
All right. Any questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the rezoning request.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, special exception 2022-388. Mr. Bryant.
So this last request is a request by Terry Markham for a special exception in the R3 multifamily. This is to allow for an assisted living / memory care facility and an independent living facility for seniors. The proposed two-story independent living senior facility would contain 150 units, and the two-story assisted living memory care facility would contain 140 units. There were also 10 conditions that the Planning Commission recommended approval. Those are found in your packet. Any questions for staff?
No. Thank you, Mr. Bryant. All right, we'll go ahead and open up the special exception public hearing regarding the memory care facility. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward.
I have Daniel again with us. This is, this center board that we have is a conceptual drawing that shows the villas, the assisted living, and the unassisted living senior apartments. So as you can tell, we trying to make it something attractive. We're not trying to cut this thing down to bare bones, but our concept is is here, and I think Daniel can speak more to this and the need for the seniors to have a transitional neighborhood that takes them from the villas to potentially the apartments, and then, if need be, to the assisted living.
Thank you, Terry, for the opportunity to speak. So just to touch on the buildings, they're two-story, both the independent living and the assisted living. These are kind of resort-style amenities that are included and provided at these communities. You'll have fire pits and outdoor kitchens and areas, landscape gardens and raised beds, and there'll be a lot of opportunity to interact with indoor and outdoor space. We always try and give our seniors access to the outdoors. And so you'll see some of the example images below. Some of it's taken cues from a hospitality model. If you think of going into a nice higher-end hotel, you have different dining options. You have grab-and-go cafes. You have your coffee and bistro areas. You have your fine dining, your fireside lounges and things like that. So billiards, libraries, internet cafes, these are all things that seniors today want, and the options, and this is what's going to be at these communities. So this is definitely a nice place where people can bring grandchildren and hang out. So any questions in particular about the buildings, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Special exception 2022-388. Anyone wishing to speak?
One last comment. We brought Jamie Gillespie here from the Lynchburg Business Alliance, and she had done some economic impact. I don't know if y'all have any questions for her. I know y'all received it in your packet, but she's here to answer questions. And I noticed she's still sitting there, and we haven't addressed her at all. So if there are questions, she's here to answer them.
All right, board, I know, well, let's close the public hearing, then we'll discuss that. We can talk. We've already made the decision on the other items. I think we all know the financial impact, but we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and or unless there's anyone else wishing to speak. If not, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Board, what's your pleasure?
I'll move that the board approve the request with the conditions recommended by the planning commission.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. So, getting back to the item at hand, the Lynchburg Business Alliance is here tonight. I didn't get the name. I forgot the name. Jamie, if you would like to come up and you can run down, give us a brief presentation of the impact. So you spent all this time here, you might as well have your time up here and tell us the potential impact of the development.
Sure. Glad to be here. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. Mr. Borkham reached out to me. So as you all know, Amherst County is a partner of the Lynchburg Regional Business Alliance. We work with Victoria and the EDA quite a bit on several projects, including the training center. So Victoria had given Mr. Borkham my information to reach out to me. And of course, we like to realistically look at these projects to see what they could do. So that's what we provided in your packet. Of course, a lot of these are on assumptions. We have to do that as we go through this. And really what we evaluated first was just the construction, right? So we'll look at that as a project over the 5-year period. That was the first thing that was included, was just the construction impact. So looking at supporting about 537 jobs, most of those directly in the construction field. Then we looked at also labor income of about $24.5 million over that 5-year period. And as you can see, there's an increase in tax revenue based on that. And that's going to evaluate sales tax, licensing fees, things like that. Property tax don't necessarily come into play here, more so when the units are established and occupied. So, pretty standard there. And then what we looked at was the household increases. So knowing that there would be new residents there, assuming a lot of them would be new to Amherst County, We looked at 129 supported jobs or induced jobs. So induced jobs are those jobs that are in your community, so childcare services, restaurant, retail, things that would be supported by new residents being in Amherst County. We expect a labor income of about $3.7 million there, and a total economic impact of about $15 million for having those new people in Amherst County. Mainly, you can see that the sectors supported there would be nursing, physicians, medical services, limited service restaurants, personal care services, those things that people in your community generally are going to access. So, we obviously understand the concerns of the people that are here, but we do feel like this is a great project. It would definitely bring some increased tax revenue to Amherst County. Population growth, and when you look at from an economic development impact, new businesses are always looking, is a community growing? Do you have population increases? That's one of the first things that, industry is going to look at when they decide if they want to relocate to your county. And you all have done a lot to try to improve economic development here, and I think this would only help that. So that's just our opinion. Thank you for the opportunity, and we're happy to partner with you on these things. And as you have these projects, we can always provide these studies.
Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamie.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, that concludes our public hearings for the night. Next, we will move on to the consent agenda and go on down through the rest of the agenda. So next, we have the consent agenda. Are there any questions regarding the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'll have to abstain from the minutes of September the 6th. I was out with illness.
All right.
I'll do the same, but I wasn't sick.
All right, we'll go ahead and take the minutes. Let's go ahead and do that one. We'll take that one out of there. I make a motion, we approve the minutes for September 6, 2022. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And we have 2 abstentions from Mr. Ayers and Mr. Wade. And then we will take the rest of them as a whole unless there are any other questions.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the rest of the consent agenda.
There's a motion on the floor by Mrs. Tucker. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next we have a special presentation. Mr. Sam Bryan, if you could come up. I would like to thank you for the years of service that you put forward for Amherst County, as well as your obligations to the military and all that you've done in your career. You've got a decorated career. We appreciated everything you did for us. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution. Let it be resolved by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Amherst, Virginia, that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Amherst, Virginia now express its pride and congratulations to Samuel Bryan on his retirement from public service with Amherst County. Whereas Samuel served as Amherst County's Deputy Director of Public Safety from 2014 to 2018, and as Director of Public Safety from 2018 until September of 2022. And whereas he worked closely with the school system, Amherst County government, and health department to coordinate the county's response to COVID-19, and whereas he played a vital role in response to the 2018 Elon tornado and worked closely with the various county departments, the Virginia Department of Emergency Management on tornado damage assessment, and handled the communication with out-of-state and local authorities during the post-tornado cleanup. And whereas Mr. Bryant was responsible for sending the first Amherst County EMS captain to the Virginia Fire Officer Academy, and whereas he planned and executed a strategic planning workshop, established core values for Amherst County public safety, and oversaw the transition to the next generation 911 system. And whereas he secured multiple grants for public safety for the purchase of Type 1 advanced life support ambulances, and whereas Mr. Bryant served Amherst County with dignity and honor, setting and maintaining high performance standards for medical care, customer satisfaction, professional conduct, and selfless service around his entire department. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Amherst, Virginia, that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Amherst hereby thank Samuel Bryant for his service, commend him for his outstanding leadership, and wish him well in his retirement. This is a resolution that shall be in force and effect upon adoption. Mr. Bryant, thank you for your work, everything you've done, we appreciate it.
Didn't do it alone. Thank you very much.
That's right.
Thank you, sir.
All right, now we will go to old business. Oh, I'm sorry,
I move that the board adopt the resolution.
All right, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
All right, anyway, we were going to pass it regardless. All right, Mr. Rogers, we have strategies for goals and objectives, old business.
Yes, sir, this was carried over from the last meeting where we didn't have full attendance. The board asked that we wait for everybody to get here. At the board's annual planning workshop, it took our 8 objectives that we've been operating under for the last year, turned it into 4 goals and 19 objectives. The staff then met at their own workshop afterwards and tried to develop strategies to achieve each of those objectives. So this is a lot for us to try to accomplish in a year, but so you have in your package the goal that you adopted, the objectives under that goal, and then the staff identified the strategies that they would use to achieve it and identified in parentheses which department would be responsible to take the lead, although all would probably be participating in many of them. And so staff is seeking guidance on which of these you want to keep and which of these you are willing to let go. The request is really based upon marshaling and concentrating our resources. We can spread ourselves paper thin across all of them, or we can focus on the ones that are most important to you. Beyond that, I'm available to answer questions.
All right, board. It's a lot of objectives here. I don't know if you want to whittle some of these down or what approach you would like to take. I don't think it's plausible that all of them are going to be able to be fulfilled. I know that once budget time gets here, we're limited in fiscally what we can and can't do. I know that will whittle down a lot of it, but what's your pleasure?
Well, I do have a question. Under goal 2, with the SROs in every school, so can we mark that complete now based on?
Well, we would certainly take credit for that one being complete, yes, sir. And many of these, we are well on our way with some of them, but you left them as objectives. Like, for instance, broadband you left. And, we're well on our way with broadband. There's not much for staff to do now except monitor and then try to work Firefly into the Comcast areas next. But we're aware of that. We don't necessarily need that as a goal to be working toward. And I would hope that the board would be looking forward rather than looking at where we're standing at the moment.
All right, well, there's some on here, the fire code official, I know last year we had scrapped that. I don't know if that's going to be something we're going to look at doing this year. That might be a budget time discussion regarding that. There's also Ems Academy. I think we had a discussion regarding that just last meeting, whether we were going to have our own through the county like we normally do and involve the paid staff with the volunteers, or whether we were going to try to fund that through another apparatus. I think that was still in discussion. I mean, a lot of these are...
It is true, the staff has not been sitting still. We're keeping all of these things moving. And it's now approaching a month since your workshop.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I was going through this, it's overwhelming. If it's overwhelming for me, I know how much it must have been overwhelming for the staff to put together. Could we go through and do something like, if we could color code it and say, okay, we've already started this, we're halfway through, or we're done. Or can we color code something if it's got budget implications, so we know that? Just some way to kind of,
All right, like, yeah, that's fine. Some of these I'm not aware of, like smart trash cans at Poplar Parks, Where's Waldo, community dumpster. Some of these I'm not aware of.
I'll take her request one step further. So along with the color coding, bucket them, put them in a bucket by who's going to be responsible, whether it's
Yeah.
the EDA, whether it's IT, whether it's finance. Put them in a column and color code them accordingly. And
Yeah.
we'll circle back.
And then bring this back later on.
I think
Yeah.
that'll help.
Yeah.
and the intent is not to make busy work, but it's just to make it easier for us to make a decision.
Sure. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
All right. All right, I guess would any
That's-
other, all right.
That's sufficient guidance. We can take that for action.
Okay, now we have a big item, the Gateway Sewer Project. I have Mr. Rogers is going to take this, and then we're going to have Mr. Bob and Stacy come up and speak here in a little bit.
Okay, so we've alluded to this with the Morcom discussion, that development needs a sewer line that can service it. And so, as part of your ARPA spending plan, you gave the Service Authority $1 million toward a sewer line along the river that would come up far enough and be robust enough, be improved enough to help service this and perhaps other developments in the area. And so, at a previous meeting, Mr. Hopkins indicated that $1 million would not be enough. And so the board directed that staff get together with the Service Authority, try to calculate the actual costs, and then come back to you with options on how we might fund what extra was needed. So just to put it in context, I think Mr. Hopkins developed a pricing for us, and the total came up to, if I can jump ahead, if we were to act this year, if I'm interpreting this correctly, Bob, it's 2.9, almost $3 million is what we're looking at. And can I invite Bob to come up now and answer questions and explain what this covers, how much pipeline this covers?
Okay. The original, when we first talked about this, it was many months ago, we were looking at an 8-inch sewer between Kings Road and Thomas Road, along with a pump station. And the cost estimate for that was $1.7 million. And that, like I said, that was several months ago. In the intervening time, we've all seen the inflation. We all know how construction costs have gone up. And because of, then the supervisors requested that we look at expanding the project to be able to get sewer to the Morcom property. And so we went back and looked at that. I mean, I realized right away that was going to be at least jump it up to about $3 million. And I got with Hurd and Profit, and we worked out a scope of work for the expanded project, and you can see it came out to be, if it was done, well, it really can't be done this year, obviously. So we're looking at over $3 million, and that's if the work can be done by the end of 2023. And as I've explained before, I question whether that is really feasible. To be conservative, I mean, I'm an engineer, I'm always conservative, but I would think that the end of 2024 would be a more likely deadline for getting that done. And it could conceivably be done by the end of 2023, but you're looking at an awful lot of work to get done between, essentially within the next year. So, and that's all I've got, unless you all have any questions.
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if it's for you, Bob, or for maybe Mr. Morcom. As a chicken and the egg question. Mr. Morcom, can you start building with the sewer not in place? Or does the sewer have to be in place first before you can start building?
To answer that question, I guess my only response to that is, if you know it's coming, you can certainly be working on your infrastructure as far as your roads, building the sewer lines that will eventually connect to this line, as well as continue forward with all of your planning. I mean, all of what we have to do, we've already feel as though for us to break ground on this project, we probably have at least till this time next year before we could break ground on it. So, I mean, at that point, then it's going to take some time to start turning dirt and building some roads that will be important to making this project. But we don't intend to do anything without some kind of assurance that we're going to end up with a sewer line to connect to. We know what it would cost us if we have to pump the sewer out of there, and that probably kills this project.
Okay.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins,
Yes, sir.
this expansion of sewer, do you have any idea how many parcels this will provide the availability of connection to public sewer? I mean, obviously, the Markham project is a large one, but we know there were some problems in that area, River Road area, Kings Road area, anticipated problems in the very near future as far as with infrastructure that is currently there. What do you, in this plan?
Depends on how they're developed. The way that when I was working with Mike Wilson, Hurt and Profit, we talked about this for quite a bit. The way we're looking at this is a phase one project. This will take care of the failing system on River Road, and it should take care of the Morcom property. I personally do not think, well, I know that the project right now uses the existing 2.5-inch force main, sewage force main. And that should, we think that will probably accommodate the Morcom property. With the other properties down there, you're going to need more pumps and you're going to need a larger force main. So you're talking at least an additional phase down the road to be able to accommodate other properties, in my opinion.
Say that again? So, there's an existing 2.5-inch force main,
Yes, sir.
and this project uses that.
Yes.
But down the road, that's gonna have to be probably
Upsized, probably to at least a 4. Again, depending on how these other big properties develop.
And that's not included in the 2.9.
No, sir.
Is topography, I mean, is that one of the issues with the area? I mean, the price?
Not really, no.
So you're talking about additional pump stations, so if you need additional pump stations.
Not additional pump station, additional pumps. We'll start out with a certain size pump that will accommodate the phase one generated wastewater. As more properties develop down there, you may need larger pumps or more pumps to be able to handle the additional flow.
Mr. Chairman, I think this question is probably for Mr. Rogers. I really support this project, and I will do everything in my power to get this thing through. It's going to benefit so many people I know personally, and people I don't even know. It's going to be just a jewel for Amherst County. So I'm going to do everything I can to get us to yes.
Great.
I'll say that up front. Aren't there grants and things like that we can match? I mean, there's got to be more ways to skin this cat than just coming out of the county coffers.
Yes, ma'am. When you're ready to talk about how to fund that $3 million, Stacy's going to come up and talk about avenues we can pursue.
I have a question for Mr. McBride.
All right. Okay. We're good right now, Mr. Hopkins. We have a question for you. We'll get back to you. Ms. McBride, if you come up here, please. And
Mr. Rogers, a quick question. In this approximately $3 million cost, now, we have set $1 million of that aside, is that correct? Or is this in addition to the $1 million we have set aside?
This is in addition, and Stacy will explain. I mean, the Service Authority has $2 million from us at this point, from different sources.
Right.
Okay, and so what we're talking about is finding an additional $1 million, but You want to lay that out, Stace? Start with maybe the first million and what that was for, and then how we added the second million.
Okay.
That's my question, is how much funding have we moved?
Allocated?
Yes.
There's technically 2 million, supposedly for 2 different purposes.
Okay.
And I will get to my idea about that after I run through a few of the other options I put in your agenda packet, and where we are with some of those right now, because we're really up in the air. I have spoken today with Davenport, and I'm going to talk to Mr. Taylor again tomorrow after this meeting. I looked at the USDA grant loan option. Because this area is in a census tract of impoverishment, I think we qualify. And a lot of these grants have a lot of forgiveness in them right now because of the ARPA. So I'm trying to get in touch with the USDA representative here in the region. That's the first thing I'm looking at. The second thing to note is that the ARPA money we have set aside can be used to match any grant, federal grant out there. So we have a lot of options that we don't have to come up with the match. I currently have the new grants administrator. She sat through one today with DEQ. She's sitting through another one tomorrow with DEQ, and she and I are going to circle back and talk about, I asked her to look at some FEMA stuff as well. On the outside that we would have to do any borrowing, even a USDA loan grant, we would have to do an interim borrowing. VRA is always an option, but we need to pull them in and talk to them as well, based on what I talked to Mr. Taylor about today, and looking at what the Service Authority already has out there, and it has coming up. But we couldn't do that with the VRA until the spring. So it would require interim financing too. You always have the option to cash fund the difference. Now, I did reach out to the director, about a little bit of creativity I came up with that would limit the amount that we would need to come up with. He has a $2 million in ARPA money that has not been spent yet. 3 years of what we would normally give him, would have given him in the budget, is encompassed in that million. If we reallocate that million back over to this project, give him the cash that equals those 3 years, and put him back in the budget process, now we're only looking at about $1 million to try to fund, either by grant or by cash or by borrowing. That's a little outside the box, but it was something that with not knowing where their debt ratio and what it would do to their rates to borrow money, it's a balance. So that was an option, but I did want to run it by him. Sorry, Bob, I did try to reach out, but I didn't get it to him. I just think that's an option that we could play with it, because also, if you wanted to do more down there, depending on the match, now you've got $2 million of ARPA.
To match with.
To match with, as opposed to just $1 million of ARPA to match with. So you get more flexibility with that. I talked to RT. I think, depending on the direction you all give me today, how you want me to prioritize how I look at this, I will talk to him if you all would like. He said he would take the scenarios that we come up with, drop them into the cash flow that he normally does for the Service Authority, and come back and explain it to everyone when the time was right. Now you can hit me with all your questions.
Mr. Martin?
Well, I think you should be commended for being so creative about this, and I appreciate that. So when you're talking about someone issuing debt, I'm assuming you mean the Service Authority would issue that debt and not the county?
Well, that's a question that Mr. Taylor and I talked about today, and we're not sure. Okay. We need to pull VRA in, and normally you issue debt and it's tied to whatever asset, whoever owns the asset, so I don't know. We might be able to get creative with that too. This is just something we're talking through, because you could possibly borrow it, run it through the EDA in some way, pass it on, and it's fine. It's just, I've got to work all those pieces out a little bit more. He threw some more things in there that I wasn't expecting, and we have a lot of options to do this. It's just nailing down the best one for the county
So I think,
and the service authority.
right, so I think from my point of view, no one is arguing the benefit of the sewer line. Everybody wants to do the sewer line. I think, but from the county standpoint, I think we've already sent $2 million to the service authority,
Correct.
right? And I'm not sure how much more responsibility this board has to come up with the extra million, right? I mean, I think everybody needs to have a little skin in that game, including the service authority, okay? So I would not support funding it out of our reserves. I would encourage Mr. Hopkins to get with you and be creative about how to come up with the extra million. But in the meantime, if we also know that the 2.5-inch line is not going to be sufficient, and we're doing this, and we might have to borrow money, we may as well look at what it's going to cost to upgrade that line to a 4-inch or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, and the U.S.
Instead of doing it piecemeal.
I hear what you're saying.
So,
He did, I think you did answer my question that this project does include the line that goes up to the Morgan development. Okay, that was a question I had because I wasn't sure by reading the actual list. So that helped me a little bit because I wasn't sure if we needed another million or whatever. So if you want him, Mr. Hopkins, to go back and get a estimate on increasing it?
that would be my recommendation. If we have to go out, if someone has to go out and borrow the money to do it, what is the real
price of
long-term, instead of having to go back and tear up River Road again in the future, or whatever it is we have to do. Just do it right the first time. I'm assuming the force main is cheaper than gravity lines, correct? Right.
Gravity won't work.
Right, so that's why we're.
It's a little too flat down there.
Exactly, so, you know, as far as you guys going out and coming back with creative funding solutions that don't include us,
The county borrowing.
well, I'm not even putting that out.
Okay.
It would be preferable to me, as one board member, that the service authority, you know, front set that.
Right.
Right? Because we've already kind of said, here's 2 million, right? Now, how you leverage that 2 million is up to the service authority.
I was looking at one of the USDA loans that actually offers like 100% forgiveness of the loan part after a certain amount of time, that you technically borrow it, but it gets forgiven because of where we are. So I'm trying to get into the details of that one a little bit.
So, I mean, I don't think I think it's great to have this discussion. I don't think we're anywhere near making a.
Well, it is, I mean, I think I felt some urgency to get this on the board because I thought Mr. Morgan really wanted to start breaking ground soon. So this gives us some time to really lay it out correctly and finance it the best way we can.
Sure, I mean, I'm sure he wants to break ground, but he's, like I said earlier, he's not gonna break ground until.
Well, he knows we're coming.
He knows the sewer's coming, right?
I get it. I definitely get it.
And I think we have an obligation, put the service authority hat on and put the county hat on, is to figure out the best way to do it.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Are you all good with me working with Davenport to do that, or do you?
That's what I was getting ready to say, Ms. McBride, is I think it's best. Obviously, I think that the board here is in support of this project as well as to fix the failing infrastructure that we have just below this infrastructure. And I support Mr. Martin. You know, we know there are several fairly large additional tracts of property now that could potentially be developed, and I strongly encourage us and to request Mr. Hopkins to go ahead and look at the cost of just going ahead and replacing that 2.5 to a 4-inch force main in doing this project. And maybe, as Davenport usually comes back with 2 to 3 different ways of financing this project, is to come back to us in the very near future and give us some options of, and hopefully by that time, Mr. Hopkins will have that number and we can put that in there as, you know, what is our best options and how to finance this, how to pay for it, what
And it helps for me to have that cost, so as soon as I get that from him, I will start working on it, but it also lets me see how many grants I might be able to apply for.
But as with all grants, we apply, but we need our backup plan, and that's where Davenport comes in. If we can't get that grant, then how are we gonna fund it?
I understand. Mr. Lockley, do we need to do a motion that, what did you feel in our consensus on this to allow her and Mr. Hopkins to look at financing options for this particular project?
Just to do talking and studying, all that she needs is a consensus. In order to move forward more than that, then you would certainly want a resolution, but just talk is what staff does.
Well,
Yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman?
You're still gonna be going down those avenues of the grants, that's what I heard.
Absolutely.
That would be your first, that's what
Yes.
we'd like to see, so we wouldn't have to fund it, but, yes.
We're digging through the notes right now.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Mr. Hopkins?
Ms. Hopkins, Ms. McBride, I'm so sorry.
If I can make another point about the second $1 million, that money, and I've already presented this to the Service Authority Board, that money is, as far as I'm looking at it, is planned for the replacement of 2 wastewater treatment plants off of Winesap Road with similar pump stations. That, if we can do that, and it's going to take at least $1 million to do that, but with that project, we are eligible for at least $500,000 in grants from DEQ. So if we can't, if that money is taken away from those projects for the Gateway project, we may lose the opportunity for the $500,000 from DEQ. And like I said, it's already been, we're already working on replacing those treatment plants with pump stations. So I just want to bring that to your all's attention.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to new business parking ordinance 2022-11. Mr. Wade, are you going to bring us up to speed on this?
I will. So, background.
Hold on a second, let's
Go
just,
ahead.
we'll let everybody, move out of the room and then we'll. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Wade, go ahead.
All right, so this ordinance is before you to hopefully get y'all's consent to move to a first read. The background here is some constituents reached out, and they're having issues with people parking on the sidewalks. This is specifically related to the Old Town area. So I reached out to Mr. Rogers and Mr. Popovich, and Mr. Lockaby by default, and asked about ordinances we had related to sidewalks. So they couldn't find much. There was one ordinance that y'all passed back in 2020 that kind of comes into play here, and I'll speak on that in a minute. But the idea here is to keep people from essentially parking on the sidewalks, keeping it a clear path for anybody that needs the sidewalk. I'm thinking handicapped people in wheelchairs that can't just hop on the road and go around. Now, the one issue with this ordinance that kind of interferes with the ordinance y'all passed back in 2020 is section 9-7 regarding parking in front of a fire zone. Y'all had bumped up the fee for that to $100, whereas this, as you see it right now, only has it at $75, so I would like to amend that to the $100 to match. And I'd also like to include that for parking in front of a fire hydrant, bump that up to $100 as well. So, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So, I mean, this is a pretty lengthy parking ordinance. I mean, there's parking ordinances for everything in here. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Yes, sir.
What was the specific problem that brought you to this? Like, was it people were parking on the sidewalk?
Parking on sidewalks, setting up their basketball goal on the sidewalks, stuff like that. So what happened was, since we didn't have anything, I'd asked Mr. Rogers and Mr. Popovich to review what other counties used. And what they brought before me was something that I believe it was Chesterfield County had in place. So from that, I had picked out what I thought were most applicable and would be best for the county, and that's what you see now before you. So whether it's parking near a fire zone, fire hydrant, cul-de-sac, wherever it might be, setting up commercial vehicles and whatnot, mainly the parking on the sidewalk.
So all this is new language?
It is, yes.
Okay.
So, I have a question, Mr. Wade. So, I think everyone can agree parking on sidewalks bad, right?
True.
The question so the first question I have is, are they parking on the sidewalk because there's nowhere else for them to feasibly park, or are they just doing it out of spitefulness?
From what I have witnessed, it's, there's plenty of room to park on the side of the road, right in front of their house or whatnot.
Okay.
They're pulling up on the.
Because I'd like to,
Just out of convenience.
Mr. Bryant's left, but I guess I'd like to look at that in a little bit, a little bit closer, because I would hate for us to put an ordinance in place that said, that essentially took all the parking away, if that was the only place they had to park, and would essentially make the property pretty much worthless, right?
Gotcha.
They don't have anywhere to put the car. So, I'm not saying parking on sidewalks is good, but, as far as a basketball goal, whatever. But I think the other thing is, it's kind of like the parking in the fire lanes in front of a fire hydrant. It's only as good as enforcement is.
True.
And quite frankly, I'm not sure how much it's going to be enforced, but you can try, I guess.
Yeah, that was kind of my take on this too. I don't mind, a particular, if you're looking at a certain problem, going over a certain problem, but this is pretty lengthy, and I mean, it's got things, more than 18 inches from a curb in the area where parking, and there's a lot of things in here that just, like, I don't know if we need to take our time and police. So I think we need to take a closer look.
I don't mind moving it.
This was just a first draft, so.
Yeah, I don't mind moving it forward for more discussion. I think it probably needs to be amended a little bit, but.
If I may, Mr. Chair, the normal process going forward is next week give you a first read. So we want to put the ordinance in the format that we think you'll like, and then you'll say yes at the first read, put this in front of the public. And so at the next meeting, unless you make any changes to this, you're going to see now's the time to make the changes. Now, you can make changes at the next meeting, but then that's the version we're going to put out for public hearing at the second monthly meeting in October.
Mr. Chairman?
The sooner we can get it into the final form, the better.
Ms. Tucker?
Since this is an issue that is more prevalent down where Mr. Wade is, and his constituents came to him, and by his own admissions, this may be a little more heavy-handed than what you had intended and more comprehensive. Why don't we ask him to pare it down and work with Mr. Rogers?
All right, then bring it back. Why don't we just, don't bring it to a first reading, pare it down a little bit, and then bring it back for discussion next month.
Okay. That works. Yep, that would be fine.
All right, anything else regarding the parking ordinance? If not, we will move on to county administrator's report. Mr. Rogers, do you have anything?
Yes, sir. I've got a lot of things, in fact. I'm going to run down the project status report, mostly to put you up to speed on each of these items, and then I'm not going to be issuing the project status report any longer because many of these things are just coming off, they're finished. And what I want to do going forward is just use this time to just keep you updated. I find a lot of these things, they don't move, they move in spurts, and then a lot of times, like you'll learn of some things that just happened today that weren't able to be put into the report in time for the meeting. Just to run through each of these and a few others that aren't even on them. The Old Town Madison Heights project, we are finished with multi-year 1, and we received word today that we are receiving funding for multi-year 2. That's the funding that will allow us to remove the telephone poles from the street and repair some of the retaining walls. So we've got funding for that. The Central Virginia Training Center, we are expecting DBHDS, Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Service, to issue their letter this week to Department of General Services to declare the property excess. Hasn't happened yet, but they told us a few weeks ago that this is when they expected that to happen. Marketing of the property just goes on as if we know what's going to happen, because we do. The landfill and transfer station, I can tell you that we are calculating current costs to operate both and are preparing a report to bring to you at the next meeting. The transfer station is open, the transfer station is operating, and it's hauling trash to the top of our landfill. But you'll see a cost comparison hopefully at our next meeting. It's just about done. The Lynchburg Road extension, that VDOT's not going to start construction until next May. I want to talk about the Amherst Nelson Ag Complex, the ANAC. I sent you an email just today that the Nelson County Administrator informed me that their board members received a report from the architects. Those architects are available to come to you and make the same report, but their board members held a vote, and they decided that they did not want to have a joint meeting with Amherst County about that project. They hadn't received a formal invite to such a joint meeting yet, but they did that anyway. So the options before us right now are invite architectural partners to come and present their study, their feasibility study. We could fund our own water study. They did not calculate the gallons per minute coming from the well. We could fund that ourselves if you need to have that information. We could issue a formal invitation to Nelson to join us in a meeting, or whether they want to participate or not, and get a formal vote from them on the actual partnership. We could invite other partners from our region to join us. There are other county administrators that have expressed interest in the project. The city might be interested. CVCC is interested. I don't know about funding, being a funding partner, and we can also link up with the CTE Academy, which is already in existence, and that's the main function of this property. So there are other partners available. Really, the one question in front of you is whether you want to proceed with the purchase of the land. And we haven't done anything with regard to that negotiation. We could start a negotiation for the land purchase. And finally, we could terminate the endeavor altogether. And so I could really use some guidance on what next steps you all want to take. Feasibility study's done, you've received it. That's the information we have. The bottom line is they say, yes, it's feasible, yes, there's water present, they haven't quantified it. I need to know where you want to go next, so I can make that happen.
All right, well, I'll go first on that. If you don't have a joint venture with Nelson County, then I don't have a desire in moving forward with the project. That would open up a lot of avenues for the county regarding financing, grants, and so forth. So at this point in time, we would be better off if we wanted to spend that type of money to look at the CTE with the Central Virginia Community College.
So is that stop altogether or pursue a partnership?
I mean, you could see if there's other localities that would be interested, but as far as I'm concerned, I think it's dead. I mean, that would be my thing, to just cease.
I thought you just said you asked me to look at
I'd
other
rather,
partners.
I mean, if you can find one, I don't know who you're gonna find. I mean, you got a piece of property that's located at the very edge of the county, 30 minutes from, your major population center in Madison Heights. I mean, maybe you can, but we do have a lot of irons in the fire right now with funding requests. And to go out here and to do that on top of the things we're looking at, I think fiscally would be very hard for us to do without grants.
Well, there's no question that we would pursue grants. That's the only way to fund it, to be honest. But the question is whether to buy the land. And so what I'm hearing you saying is you're not interested in buying the land unless we have a partner to help share in that cost. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I would give that a look, but at this point, really, if you want to know the truth, I don't want to buy the land. I'd like to move on and go forward.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I mean, there's 4 other board members.
My feeling's the same. I mean, I think that would be quite an endeavor for us to take as an individual locality, but, Mr. Rogers, if by chance there is another locality that may wish to partner with us in that, I mean, I still say we, keep that open, but as far as us considering it as a individual endeavor, I think it would be quite a bit more than we should take part in right now.
I think, one, I want to commend the citizens on both counties that came up with this idea and really put heart, soul, and blood, sweat, and tears into it. Anything that we can do for our agricultural community, obviously, I'm for. I'm extremely disappointed in this. I'm very disappointed in it. It sounds like the majority of our board does not want to go forward either, so I'm not going to charge up a hill by myself. Having said that, it's my strong opinion that we formally go to the owner and tell him that our interest has waned. Mr. Ayers, would you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me ask you this, would you want to do that now or after Mr. Rogers has had a chance to talk to the other localities? I would prefer to wait until he hears back from some of the other folks, just in case there is potential interest. I know it's a big push, but...
I agree with Mr. Wade.
So I'll give you my thoughts. So I wholeheartedly support the idea of an agricultural complex. Wholeheartedly, always have. Given that it doesn't look like our neighbors to the north want to participate in it, the uncertainty of the water, I'm not sure that that's the site for it anymore, right? I don't want to give up on the idea of an agricultural complex. I think the thing to do would be to speak with the other localities that have expressed an interest in it, and maybe there is another piece of property in the county that's more suitable, that may be on public water, closer to Appomattox or the city or CVCC or wherever it is. I don't think we give up on the overall goal of having one. It's just maybe that's not the right place for it anymore. So that's my thought.
Well said. I agree with Mr. Martin.
Very good.
All right.
Okay, do you want to receive a presentation from Architectural Partners on what they've done? Do you feel a need for that?
At this point, I don't.
Well, do we have to pay them for it?
No.
I mean, the point is,
Yeah, I've sent it to you.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how much of that information would be relevant to another site. But maybe we can just read it again on our, I did read it.
The report is ours. We own the report, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we can share it with whomever we choose.
Correct.
As you start talking to other possible partners.
Well, when you hire these people to look at these things, their job is to say, yeah, this is feasible.
That's true.
You're going to get the answer that you want most of the time when you hire these people, and it's fairly obvious. And we didn't get them, one of the most important answers that we wanted was the water, so.
Yeah. I think there's some good things in there, like, maybe square footage requirements and acreage requirements and all that kind of stuff,
So, Mr. Rogers, are you clear on what the board has?
Well, here's what I understand. I'm going to take the report that I've received, I'm going to share it with other localities in the region and see if they would want to join, including CVCC. and the Academy, which is part of CVCC, and see if they would want to partner with us in any way to build this CTE facility. And if there is someone, I'll then begin looking at or for other suitable localities. I have spoken with Vance Wilkins at property right next to the Brockman Business Park. But, his price is about 50% more per acre than what we're currently looking at. And it's about half the size, so we don't have all the features. But, the one down in Chatham is, a quarter of the size of this. It doesn't need that many acres to do this. We just had 300, and we designed to 300. So,
you understand?
I'm going to look for a partner. No partner, then we're done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so to continue on other projects, broadband is, Firefly is building. Their problem in the county is that they need 12 crews, and they've only been able to find manpower for 8. So they're going as quickly as they can. They continue to update their maps and get maps with greater precision. We will stay on top of that information. River Edge Park Trail, the board has directed to stop any further on that, so that's the last time I'll be talking about River Edge Trail.
And Mr. Rogers,
Or River Edge Park Trail, I'm sorry.
correct me if I'm wrong, but we put some ARPA money or the CARES Act, I don't know which one it was, but towards internet, right, in the county? Is that correct?
Yeah, CRF money at the beginning. We sure did, yes, sir.
What is the status on that? Has that been spent or it has been spent?
Well, that's rolled into the whole Firefly project.
Okay, I was just
Yeah,
wondering,
we're part of a 12-county coalition.
We had one other project before the current one. That's the CARES Act money.
Right.
This is the ARPA money. They're not the same, so.
Okay, you answered my question.
Yeah,
Okay,
so we have about $3 million set aside for now.
I was like, oh, maybe there's some more money floating around here.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Regarding the River Edge Park Trail, weren't we going to look into potential grants for a potential bridge over to Perkins?
Yeah, we did. We did not receive that. We will apply again.
Okay.
And it's really a design grant because Vdot has given us a list of criteria that have to be met if we're going to be under, attached to, or near their bridge, which is where we want to do this, to reach over to Percival Island. So we're trying to get the grant to pay for the study the engineering study that will analyze on what's needed to meet VDOT's criteria. But we failed in the first attempt, and we'll make more.
Okay, thank you.
The Madison Heights Master Plan, that's what really we received direction tonight with regard to the Morecambe development. Our contractors are now in the process of developing a concept plan. In fact, we just met with them last week. They needed to know how to include and what to include with regard to the Morecambe development. We gave them that information. I'm not going to report any further on the new financial software. We are fully in the process of implementing that. Also, I want to give you just a news item here. If you'll remember Deborah Spire, who acquired property just to the west of the town of Amherst, and she now owns, if you look on the map, this is Kenmore Road. She owns this parcel. She owns this parcel. She owns this parcel. Okay, right there off of Kenmore Road. Her neighbor, Robbie Howell, has offered to sell her this parcel, and she is interested in purchasing that. It's 112 acres. Given the changes that were made in the comprehensive plan before, this parcel is no longer in the town's plan. It's in the county's comprehensive plan. And so, and she will decide whether to purchase this, and apparently she has the cash to do so, if she can also place this in the same conservation easement that we already hold for her other parcels, okay? And so for that to happen, we'll have to come back to the board, and we'll have to ask the board for a resolution to include this additional 112 acres into the existing conservation easement. And I wanted to get a sense from the board whether that's okay with you, so that I can share that with her, and that will, now, I don't know whether Howell is offering it to other surrounding property owners, but this lady has the cash to just put on the barrelhead for what they're asking. So she just needs to know, would it be okay for her to add this to her conservation easement? Does anybody have any objection to that?
I don't.
I don't.
Okay, that's what I assumed. I just wanted to bring it to your attention and make sure that you did.
That will come before the board. though.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Because I do have issues with it that close to the town limits, actually. I think at some point, further up 60, out in the Henry's lands, great, but when you get that close to the town of Amherst and the growth areas, putting that land in conservation easements, I'm not sure long-term that's the best thing to do, but that's fine. We can cross that bridge when we come to it.
Well, then I guess I will be able to tell her that a majority of the board at this point in time is amenable to adding this to the conservation easement. I mean, the logic originally was it's her property, she ought to be able to do with it what she wants. And even though the town had wet wells that could serve that watershed, we went ahead and granted the conservation easement that would limit development. I'm assuming the same logic would hold, other than Mr. Martin?
I'd have to go back and look, but I'm not sure I voted for it last time either, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Might not even been on the board.
Yeah, because.
Yeah, I'm not sure you were on the board.
I mean, there are advantages to the house to doing this, because they get the tax credits. There's advantages to them.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
advantages to the community because we keep that open farmland, and it's not developed. But anyway, I just happen to be a proponent of conservation easements.
I think in the right location, they are absolutely a great tool. In the wrong location, I don't.
Well, there's some pretty big tracts of land right there that haven't been broken and subdivided for a long time. And it's beautiful to ride out and actually see open land and not, I mean, there's advantages both ways, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give her a go-ahead then. The next topic, I just want to alert you to that we're going to bring to you at a future meeting. We're getting requests for assistance from Nelson County. They need inspector help. They've lost their building code official, and in another area. And I don't have authority to enter into these reciprocal agreements.
No, I don't think we should be doing that.
Well, all I'm saying is, I'm going to bring to you the question of, we have helped them in the past when their manpower is short, and they have helped us, especially during the tornado. And so, while the law gives me authority to enter into reciprocity agreements in public safety, I don't have any authority from the board to do that in these minor areas. Another one is with regard to the Blue Ridge Rail Trail. We've entered into we've got an agreement drafted whereby we're sharing the cost of maintaining the bridge across there and the mowing of both sides of the trail. So
Yeah, that's one thing, and a tornado or a catastrophe is another thing, but, that's something they've got to deal with as a county, because I don't think we would expect us to.
Well, I'm not asking for anything. I'm just letting you know at the next meeting, I'm going to come and bring this topic to you, where we've worked out an arrangement with them to see whether you want to give me the authority to go forward with that or not.
How does Nate feel about this?
Well, according to Nate.
Well, Nate, it's Crowns, so Brian is negotiating that. And
You were saying building inspections.
Yeah, I thought you
Well,
said-
oh, yes, that's true. I did. There's two different topics.
Well, I guess the issue I have with it is, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I had a citizen call me yesterday and said, hey, I want to get a garage, but they're telling me it's going to take 10 weeks to have my foundation plans approved. Well, that sounds like a real long time, but if it is, why should we be sending our staff to Nelson County when we're not even being able to complete our own work on a timely manner? So,
Well, these are all great questions, and they will come up at the next meeting when we bring this information to you, and Nate will be here to address it and that sort of thing. The next item I have for you is you, Mr. Martin, asked for the business plan with regard to free community college for Amherst kids. I sent that to the board members. I haven't received any feedback. Do you all want to go forward with that in any way or need additional information? I'm just looking for a sense of direction on what you want done with that, or are we done with it until I hear otherwise?
I think we should just hold off on that until, I mean, we could look at it maybe at budget time, but I don't think it's a decision we need to make at this point.
Okay, I'll let it lie. And finally, I've given you identification cards for the spotter and lanternfly. That's an invasive species that now surrounds Amherst County. It's been found in Amherst County. I've given permission to Department of Agriculture to have access to all county properties to look for the lanternfly, and if they find any nests or evidence of breeding and that sort of stuff, they'll exterminate there. But we're not in a quarantine. I just wanted you to be aware that other counties around us are falling subject to quarantine, and it can be quite a burden. So this is just for your information to let you know. And if I have anything further, I'll have Eric Bowen come in and talk about where we're at in the process.
Well, we've had a catastrophe in this county because all the ash trees have completely been killed by an aphid, and it's destroyed it everywhere. The mountains and all that, they're all gone. They're falling over everywhere, so this will just be another thing. All right, is that it, Mr. Rogers?
One last thing on the agenda is the topic of the county administrator change to the HR regulation that allows our volunteers, our county personnel to serve in a volunteer capacity with the firefighters. I can't put that into place until I've put it in front of the board, so here's your notice. Unless anybody has any changes, with the county attorney assistance, we've developed a consent form for anyone who wants to do such volunteer work to sign before they do the work, and we're going to go forward in that capacity. The other issue with regard, you also put a condition on that policy that our volunteers not serve in as officers in the fire companies. That's more under the purview of the fire companies themselves on who they want to elect as officers or appoint as officers, and I'm not sure that we can control that. But when we produce our public safety regulations on this topic, we can certainly add that in as guidance and a condition on their ability to volunteer. But this is just in our leave section. Anyway, I just wanted you to be aware that we're starting that, and it comes into effect now that I've put you on notice. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rogers, for your report. We're going to move on to the county attorney. Mr. Lockman, do you have anything?
I do not, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right, that's a good answer. Next, we have liaison and committee reports. Mr. Martin, do you have anything regarding Parks and Rec?
yeah, very briefly, the Parks and Rec Board were very appreciative of the bus repairs and moving the new bus forward. The Parks and Rec Board and Parks and Rec staff will be doing the Halloween Spooktacular on Friday, October the 28th from 6 to 8 at Coolwell Recreation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin. I have, regarding the planning commission, there will be another short-term tourist rental coming up. They seem to be rather popular these days. And also, there's a special exception on Route 130 to allow a manufactured home. The home sits off 130. You cannot see it from the property. It's in the Neola vicinity. So that will be coming before us as well. That is an overlay district because of the scenic byway. So it has to come before the board. It's also a non-conforming lot, so they had to go through all the hurdles. Ms. Tucker, do you have anything?
I do not.
All right. And Blue Ridge Regional Jail, that's just a report for you all if you have any questions. If not, we'll go on to citizen comments. Anyone wishing to speak under citizen comments, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close citizen comments and we'll move on to matters from members of the board. Mr. Wade?
Just one item. I don't know whether to offer condolences or congratulations to Jennifer Moore. Miss Moore recently got married, I believe, over this past weekend, so now she is Mrs. Raines. So congratulations.
All right. Ms. Tucker?
I don't have anything.
Mr. Ayers?
Mr. Chairman, I got a call a couple weeks ago now from Mr. Adams. Of course, all of us know Ronnie's been head of the Dixie Youth Ball Program for many years. Has dedicated a lot of time in that program, and he made me aware that they had applied for the World Series to come to Madison Heights. It was 2024. And of course, when they make these applications, the National Program Board sends representatives in the area to look at the area and do their diligence as far as making sure that the facilities and the community is adequate to serve the number of people and whatnot that would come to Madison Heights. We did host one of these back probably 12, 15 years ago, Ronnie?
3 of them, 2001, 2007, and 2011.
Okay. I knew we'd had several that I had been involved with, several years back. It was quite disheartening to find out that they got denied the World Series, and it was basically because of the aesthetics of the Madison Heights Corridor is why we got denied. Of course, I've been on that soapbox for several years since I've been on the board, and it's always been a concern to me, but obviously, as Mr. Adams told me, that in addition to just the ability to host it in our community and have folks from all over coming here with their kids and families to celebrate the achievements of their children in the ball program, it cost that program about $80,000 because they did not get that. That's a lot of money for that youth program, a lot of money. So Ronnie, if you just give us a brief of what you told me, yes, come to the podium, please, what you told me. And, folks, I think this is a problem we need to fix. We've talked about it. We've done some, but we've not done enough. Obviously, we've not done enough, so.
By April 30th of every year, if you're planning to bid, you have to bid a World Series 2 years out. It used to be back when we hosted the 3 previous ones in 1, 7, and 11, that they would award them, and then they would come and tell you what you needed to do. Well, since then, what has happened is they awarded some to communities, one in particular in Alabama, that just really did a terrible job and didn't have adequate facilities and everything was bad. And they judge you on several things. One is your appearance of your facility where you're going to play and the safety and coordination of everything of that. 2 is the appearance of your community, and 3 is, of course, hotels, lodging, food, everything of that. What they do as far as with the corridor is they travel 1 mile north and south of your facility and just give it an overall general A, B, C, D, F, whatever. And then they look at the lodging, and they look at lodging 20 miles out because everybody doesn't have enough lodging. In 2001, just one night, we had 8,000 people in the park. In 2007, and we just held this same group that we're bidding on to have a World Series. We just held a state tournament last year, and we had 9,000 people throughout the week coming to our facility. So we're talking about even a bigger level, and we're talking about a World Series. Well, they sent a representative from Dothan, Alabama, from Troop, Georgia, one local director, and then a director from North Carolina. And I had to tour with them, show them everything. Well, when they drove through Madison Heights, I knew we were shot in the arm. Because this lady from Georgia, she was pointing. The grass in front of CVS was this tall. The grass in front of Dollar General was this tall. It's just so many things that they pointed out. The drain gutters, I invite you just to pay attention when you drive from the bridge to Monroe and Monroe to the bridge. At the drain gutters on the side of the road, it was just a 29 corridor F. That's what we got, a 29 corridor F. You know, you go to Dothan, Alabama to play where we played this past year. You go to Rock Hill, South Carolina, where you play in the communities. They know as a rural community, we're not going to match up to Dothan, Alabama, but they expect better. And we just went through 18 months of not being able to rent a community center that belongs to the ball program, that we couldn't rent it because of COVID, and we still had a $2,210 a month mortgage. Plus light bill, plus water, plus everything else. So I mean, we're not broke, but we're hurt. And this was gonna be the shot in the arm that we really needed. This was it. This was, you know, the least we made on one was 2007. We made $50,000, and most we made on one was 2001. We made $80,000. This was a shot in the arm at this program. And it was pretty disheartening to get shot down and say no. We've been through this before. We went through it in 2011. We had to do a crash. Once we was awarded it, Jimmy knows what I'm talking about, we had to do a crash cleanup of the highway. We utilized everything and everybody we could use, even the Boy Scouts. You know, this was a shot at the arm. In 2025, I'm gonna be 71 years old. I don't know if it's in me to even attempt it again. If we do, we gotta put in for it again in April. They gonna do another evaluation end of July, early August. Where are we gonna be then? Is it worth my time? It's a lot of paperwork to put together a proposal to host another World Series just to get shot down. Where are we gonna be next year? Is it worth my time to start in February and work to April to make another proposal? Are we gonna see fit to try to clean some of it up? I don't know. I don't know what the county does. I don't know what part of it is Vdot, what part of it's county. I don't know that. I just know that I don't know where to go from here. Whether I even want to pursue it again, it was disheartening to our board, it was disheartening to our program, and it was disheartening to our bank account. So that's where I'm at. That's the only reason I'm here, is to say, you know, just, you guys need to talk about it between now and February, and, you know, see if a change is going to be made. If it's not worth our time to put another proposal together to shoot for 2025. We're out of the picture for 2024. We've been turned down. It's going to go back to Dothan, or it's going to go to Chipley, Florida. They're the two other bidding. I'll guarantee you that if I bid, I get it. Because they hold these things down south all the time. These people never come to the mountains. They vote for us. We get it. And we've done such a good job with the other three we have. I've got the assurance of national directors. I'm a national director myself, and I've got the assurance of national directors from all over the 11 states, from here to Louisiana, that you put in for it, you'll get it. But we got to make the grade, and we didn't do it this time. Thank you for hearing.
I had a question. What about the state championships, Ronnie?
What was that?
Is there a chance that we can still get the state championships?
The state
Like
championship?
last summer, we got the state champions.
Yeah, we won the state in 2 age groups, and we sent one group to Dothan, Alabama, which was the little guys, the 7 and 8s, and they went down and made a very good showing, and then we sent our older group down to Sterling, Monroe, Louisiana. They didn't do so well.
No, I'm talking about our facility. Last year, because I went to it,
Last year, we hosted the state.
That's what I'm saying.
In the 9 and 10 and 11.
Is there a chance we can do that again?
We have that bid for next year.
Okay.
We have, actually last year, we had the 9 and 10, 11 and 12. Next year, we have the 7 and 8 and the 11 and 12. We've already secured that bid again. You know, it's not people coming from Louisiana, but it's people coming from, you know, all the way across the state. Carroll County, Grayson County, down that way, Roanoke, Bedford, you know, Charlottesville, up north, you know. They're going to be, you know, they're going to be here next year, the second week of July. And we have 24 teams coming back to the state next year for the state tournament. And we fared, if it hadn't have been from the grant that we got from the county and the success we had in the state tournament last year, I don't know what we'd have did. We'd probably lost the community center. And the community center belongs to the Madison Heights Baseball Association. So it's one big checking account. And when you run out of money in one, you run out of money in the other. And fortunately, 80% of our mortgage is paid, but 20% of it's still due, and that's still a $2,200 a month mortgage. I'm only hanging around long enough to get that paid off, folks, and I'm out of here. But it's, we will host that next year. That will be a shot in the arm that will also help us. We're having a great fall season right now. We got 200 kids, which is more than we've ever had in the fall program. So the people are coming back out. They're getting back involved. We had a great spring program. We're having a good fall program. The people are coming back out, but we need that shot in the arm that'll put us back to where if a $10,000 heat pump at the community center goes out, we got money enough to fix it. If a $10,000 heat pump goes out right now, we got to borrow some money somewhere. And that's where we're at. And that's why we are so hopes of starting the routine of, in a 2-year track, getting the community center paid off and getting the program back where it needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Mr. Martin? Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Rogers, do you think that we could look at some ways? We've still got a half a dilapidated hotel sitting along 29. We've got several buildings that, one is the old Flower Basket building that absolutely looks horrendous with the grass, the vines all over it, the mess it's in, old flag still sticking up in the front of it. We've got to do, in Vdot, the storm drains, I agree with Ronnie, they've are full of trash and everything else. I mean, does Vdot have the ability to, like, curb gutter trucks where they go through and brush and clean those and keep them looking presentable? What options does Vdot should be able to help us with the storm drains and getting those cleaned and the curbs where they're overgrown with grass? But it's our responsibility to get on these dilapidated buildings along that corridor and making sure these businesses keep grass and stuff presentable in front of them, that something like this does not happen and impact our community like this has, because there's no reason that we should not have been able to host that World Series for our children and children from other areas. That's it's unexcusable, unacceptable.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Mr. Martin?
No, sir.
I don't have anything neither. We'll go ahead and go into closed session. I move we go into closed session pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended to evaluate the performance of the county administrator. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
So they want us to hold their landfill. They have 100 years worth of capacity.
Hey, Dean, can you come on back?
Yes, sir.
All right, can we go ahead, I guess? Oh. I move that the board come out of closed session. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. I move that the Amherst Board of Supervisors certify by recorded vote that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion authorizing the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session. Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Mrs. Tucker?
Aye.
Mr. Ayers? Aye. Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Pugh? Aye. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. All in favor, say aye. Aye.